Scaling an idea is difficult. Scaling an idea with team is difficult. Scaling an idea with technology is also difficult. And funding, nevertheless, it's even more difficult. So I want to start with both of you. A quick introduction to our audience. If those of you haven't checked out Meesho, you should, because they help 2 million sellers. If you haven't checked out NoPo, please go check out NoPo. They're a deep science company that will provide nanotubes to electric vehicles. Right? I want to start with you, Vidit. 10 years ago, India's D2C story was speaking of like no other business, but but Indians could only recognize not more than 20 to 30 brands. But you had other ideas. Let's not just look at the brands, but there are individual sellers who can also make money. Was that the genesis? Can you talk to me about the genesis of Meesho, the idea, and scaling that idea first?
Sure. So first of all, good to be here in front of this audience talking about Meesho. So I'll give you some sense of what the business is today, and then I'll go into the history of our company. So today we are an e-commerce platform. Last 12 months, we had about 190 million unique Indians transacting on our platform, about 2 million merchants who are selling across all kinds of categories, be it like apparel, home, kitchen, beauty, personal care, kids and babies. So quite horizontal in that standpoint. And our goal has been, from day one, our mission has been to really democratize internet commerce for everyone. And by everyone, we mean 1 billion consumers, all kinds of small businesses, and a lot of people who are part of the logistics sector in India. That's why we started Meesho. So if I just go back, and I think it's a good segue to go into our early part of the history. So we started the company back in 2015 with one very simple insight. I think back then in India, e-commerce was very limited. It was mostly tier 1 consumers buying mostly branded goods online and mostly limited to that. But if you went to a tier 2 city, or if you went and spoke to people who are not part of this mainstream, most of them were not buying online. And they will say, the kind of stuff I buy offline is not available online. It's not available at the price that I can buy it offline. So there were a lot of these problems, right? Like the right supply being available, affordability, accessibility. A lot of them had never bought anything online. So the concept of what does add to cart mean? What does the rating and review mean? If I place an order and put my money, will the product ever come, right? Like because I buy from my neighborhood shop, where I trust the shopkeeper for the last many years. So there are lots of these problems. And we said like, we really want to bring Bharat online. And that means all kinds of consumers and businesses. So that was the genesis. Like, how do we really make this happen? And over the last 10 years, we have again solved multiple problems to kind of reach where we are today. One of the big problems we solved was, how do we reduce this barrier of entry for a small business to come online, right? And one of the big barriers we figured out was just the cost of doing business. For them, when they looked at their offline business and the online business always felt like you will lose money. Your cost of shipping was high, right? Like platforms charge commission, then there are ratings, you have like returns and refunds and a lot of this stuff. None of that exists in the offline world. So none of the small businesses in India wanted to go online. They didn't want to go and sell online. So we said, like, we'll have to solve all these problems. So we started with lots of innovations. Like first, we were the first zero commission platform so that we reduce all these barriers of entry for a small business to come online. We basically built the most simple platform for a small business to use. We are the first mobile first product. Everyone else was a desktop product. We were said like, hey, we'll build a mobile product so any small business in any part of the corner of the country who does not have a desktop can come online. So made it really, really simple, build the simplest and lowest cost logistics network for them to come online. So it's like some of these problems we solved over the last 10 years to kind of reach here. And I'll obviously kind of add to a lot of the story over time, but it's been just about staying very true to this mission of how you really democratize internet commerce for everyone.
Vidit, that's one word that got onto me, is that 190 million transactions a month?
So, by the way, actually now that number is north of 200 million. We do more than 2 billion orders per year now. I meant 190 million unique Indians buying in India. So almost, I would say, 20% of transacting population in India, about 70% of online transacting population in India today makes at least one transaction Meesho per year.
A round of applause for that, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, that's really hard. Well done, Vidit. Well done, really. So moving on to deep science, I always had this pet peeve because I covered deep science. It was always sleeping. It was called deep sleep. But now it's changed. Suddenly there's so much investor interest, and we are in the right forum, Invest Karnataka, and I hope people watching this will understand that deep tech ideas come from India. Bangalore is the land of IIC, HAL, BHEL, and whatnot, and ISRO as well, right? So talk about your idea quickly for our audience. Where does it benefit customers and customers? And this is a 14-year-old idea, by the way, guys. And the difference being, Vidit runs a consumer company where there's high scale, high marketing, and there's a lot of money raised. You've raised 3 million, and it takes a lot of time to convince investors, and most of you know it. And if you want to quickly summarize how you started 14 years ago after Oxford,
Sure.
and where you are now.
Sure. Yeah, so NoPo has had an interesting journey. So it started out as a dream. There was no logic to it, like saying, okay, there's going to be this market, this customer, or anything. It's mostly, how would the world be if we had something new, a new kind of a material that could be extremely strong, lightweight, conductive. Something for me as a school kid was like what could take people to space, like a very strong material. So it just started with that dream on how do we make that material. I looked around, couldn't find anyone who was making it. Everyone said it's hard, so I decided to go start doing that. I told my parents, like, see, 10 years, don't disturb me. I'm just going to do this. If nothing works out, I'll go do some programming. I can do it well. So that was the convincing pitch and got started with it. So the other day, I was just reminiscing, like, our journey from the time we started, the time we produced our first tubes to where we are today. So when we started off, initially, we were only able to produce like a few micrograms of this material. This year, we are on target to produce a ton of this material. That's a scale of 10 power 12 times in the span of these 14 years.
And what does that mean? You should tell them.
Yeah, that's 1 lakh crore times increase in output over this time frame to make it relevant for the markets.
And what markets?
Yeah, so now as we scale this so massively, it's effectively every year we are increasing output by 10 times to just make it relevant. We found a use case for it in batteries. So every lithium-ion battery that's coming out there needs this material. It's an essential raw material. It's an essential ingredient for that. And without the nanotubes, you can't make a battery that's lighter, can charge faster, and has a higher capacity. So that has made this now a very hot material. There are only 2-3 countries with the technology. It's a very limited piece of tech. It's very difficult and hard to make, and has numerous parameters that need to be controlled, pressures, temperatures, injecting catalysts in the right proportions, and then breaking them apart. The tubes themselves, if we talk about them, they're just 10 atoms in diameter. So we're producing something where we are ripping out atoms, putting them back together. The tubes are just 10 atoms in diameter, and then we produce them repeatedly. That's what we have done.
And they work in lithium-ion batteries, which go into all our
Correct.
cars and bikes.
Yep, that's right.
And they build them for scale, that they're efficient.
Yep, it improves efficiency. It's mostly what's happening with batteries is people are using silicon in the batteries, and silicon needs nanotubes to work well. So that's the reason nanotubes become a major part of it. And another extreme application, which will probably start seeing another 5 to 10 years, is as we develop these materials suitable for batteries, we also found ways to separate tubes. We were able to separate out tubes again with a very high precision. So these 10 atom tubes, I imagine all tubes of the exact same size, 0 atom deviation. So we're able to produce this material. Now this has suddenly opened up opportunities in electronics. So where we are allowed to, we can now shrink transistors even smaller than what we have today. Almost about 600 times smaller than what we have today. So that's another avenue that's going on. That's our next deep tech line of work that's happening.
Again, increasing your mileage in terms to speak. The vehicles go longer, better, and the charging time is better.
Yep, it's much faster. That's right.
You know, for those of you after lunch, if this sounds like a science lecture, it's not. You know, there are 2 million electric vehicles that are sold in India, and they're only going to increase, and we need to figure out how do we pull out nanotubes from lithium-ion batteries that are, that are going into recycling as well, with something that you do as well, don't you?
No, we
Not
do
yet?
not yet. Yeah, because we are focused on making the purest tubes.
Okay.
So that starts from a gas, from carbon dioxide. We actually are able to break down carbon dioxide into the nanotube.
So there's social impact from both sides, and that's the common theme. He's helping sellers, he's helping the environment, which is fantastic. Round of applause to Gadhadar, please. Thank you. So, okay, where do we begin? I mean, since it's about growth and scaling, both of you summarized your businesses, science, marketing in your case. Both of you came from, IITs, I suppose you came from IIT, you're co-founder as well. When you built this platform, how you have to also start marketing it. You said two problems. One is bringing new sellers on board and ensuring that people, obviously smartphone penetration was going in 2015 is going up, right? North of 150 million or 200 million per year. What are the pieces that you had to do? Did you solve the network piece first of sellers, or did you solve the customers who buy first? How do you solve the two and then do the marketing around it? Because I'm sure Instagram marketing wasn't all that popular back then, unlike now. What was your go-to at that time in terms of marketing, Vidit?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. So I think overall in a platform, you can't build demand then supply or supply then demand, because both of them have to come together. Otherwise, they will not sustain on the platform. You can make someone sign up today, but if they don't get sales tomorrow, they'll just sign off and never come back. So I think it's a good balance that you have to make, which is very hard in the early days. And that just required us to kind of work really hard. Like we promised to a seller that we'll start getting you volume. We have to get some customers to transact from them. But if I look at a early growth journey, I think early growth journey was about like figuring out one very interesting insight. That took us 2 years of lots of failures, lots of experiments. So we started the company in 2015, but after trying so many things, we landed on one insight in 2017, which is, so in 2017 in India, most consumers only had one app on their phone, and that was WhatsApp, right? And there's so many e-commerce apps back then who spent crazy amount of money on marketing, doing it digitally, doing it on TV, and no one was downloading their apps. People will just have one app on their phone. And then you go and speak to them. Why do you have only WhatsApp? Why don't you download these apps to buy? Consumer will say, hey, it will take a lot of my data. All shopping apps have images. Images consume a lot of data. So if I download this app, it will consume a lot of my data. So I don't want to do it. And this is like pre-Geo days, right? So data was really expensive. As soon as you open an app, you'll get an Airtel message saying 50 paisa deducted or 1 rupee deducted. So we said, if we really want to bring Bharat online to transact and become e-commerce users, we'll have to change this approach. So the thing we did, we said, can we bring commerce to WhatsApp? Instead of forcing all these consumers who don't want to download any app to like start making their first purchases on WhatsApp. And that's when we started our first model of like WhatsApp groups. So there'll be a community leader who will create a WhatsApp group, add all the people from their local community, friends, family, neighborhood onto that group and start sharing products from Meesho, and people just place an order with her. And she will come and just like punch in that order in the Meesho app, and we will go and deliver to that consumer. From 2017 until 2021, that's how we operated. And the beautiful thing about WhatsApp, in WhatsApp, everything goes viral. So you get added to a WhatsApp group, you start buying, you love it, you tell other friends on WhatsApp, and they start creating WhatsApp groups and start selling. We started this model in 2017. We had 10 million WhatsApp groups running in India in 2021.
This is for sellers?
This is for consumers.
Well,
like
you can applaud. Someone was applauding, so please go on. Yeah, go on.
So I'm saying these are consumers, part of 10 million WhatsApp groups by 2021, who are buying products from these sellers. And this happened without us spending anything on marketing, because as I said, it was social and hence by default viral. And I think that's, like sometimes people think marketing is just going on Instagram or some place and like spending money. I think it's about figuring out that interesting consumer insight where people are spending time and how can you be relevant to them. If you figure that insight out, you don't need to actually so much money in acquiring all these consumers. As we saw, like for a long time, no one else could acquire that consumer apart from us in India, because no one could figure out that insight.
And that insight, now you give me, most of your consumption happens in tier 3, tier 4 cities as well, I'm assuming now, yes, because of WhatsApp.
Correct.
Right? And WhatsApp solved for payments, and that made it even more easier now, I guess.
Absolutely. Like a lot of things have become easier over time. In 2021, we launched our own consumer app, so you don't need to buy on WhatsApp anymore. Most of our consumers moved here, because by then two things had happened. First, like the cost of data went down because of Jio. Now people don't think that, hey, if I download an app, it will consume a lot of my data. And second, pandemic happened, which taught so many people in India that you have to buy stuff online, because offline shops can now be closed for a while, right? So everyone learned how to buy online. So some of the problems we solved back in 2017 were gone. But like that really helped us build a customer base that was very loyal to us and much easier to move to our app. So I think the early part of the growth journey, we could just skip the marketing part, because it was part of our product design.
What could have gone wrong? In a sense, you said there were a couple of failures. What goes wrong typically while thinking like this as an entrepreneurial team, right, in the early days? What could typically go wrong? If you'd caught on to that, you did done well.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of assumptions that were wrong. Like the first iteration that we did. So we wanted to bring Bharat online. People buy. We went to consumers. You say, tell me which small businesses do you buy from? People say, hey, I buy from small businesses that are close to me in the offline world. So we said, if we bring these local businesses online, people will buy from them, right? We did that. We realized no one was buying. They're saying, I already go to that store. Why do I need an online app to buy from them? It's also limited selection. So it was basically the worst of both worlds, right? I don't get to try and buy like I do in the offline shop, and I also don't get as much selection as you get in the online world. So that local commerce app didn't work out. The second thing we did was we said maybe these small businesses, these local small businesses will be the ones who will start using this and convince their customers to start buying from them online. We realized they had even more friction adoption. Most small businesses in India are run by slightly older people who also don't like to adopt technology like the younger folks, right? So very few small businesses that are run by like early 20 folks, they were adopting to this tool, but most other people did want to digitize themselves. They said, I'm okay with how I've been running this business for the last 40 years. I will do the same thing for the next 40. So I think there were like few iterations that we learned. And again, these were all assumptions, but you have to make these assumptions, right? Like if we did not make the assumption that India will transact on WhatsApp, which had never happened anywhere else in the world, we would have not taken that risk and built that product.
No, makes sense. Now the sellers are younger as well, right? You have young sellers now in the group, right?
I think now, in the early days, definitely yes, because as I said, it was new technology, adoption comes from more younger people. I think over time, and pandemic helped us a lot in this, during that pandemic year, lots of small businesses who hadn't moved online struggled a lot. Like for 4 months, 5 months, they had zero revenue. And even after that, revenue started to come back up really slowly because people not going to an offline shop and buying. So we saw a lot of these folks learn that, hey, I need to have an online business for that day when you will declare a lockdown and I cannot sell to people in the offline world. So now I think I would say we have all kinds of sellers on our platform.
Okay, quickly, create network effects. Don't spend enormously in marketing and learn through those because you're not going to be funded forever, right? So create network effects, and for you, WhatsApp was that network effect. I must meet your marketing team, really.